Now I want you to put these in your video lecture booklets, next free page. We're going to treat it as part of our lesson, practice problems from chapter 5. So we'll have you write this down, and we'll give it a name actually. Let's just move this over a little bit there. This will be number 1 here. See if I get a nice red pen here. There we go. Now, the first thing you should do when you go to solve an equation is to inspect it a little bit. And then you're going to decide what you're going to do. Now you want to get all your letters on one side and all your terms, constant terms, on the other. And I'd like to try to keep it positive if I can. So for something like this, since this is negative, to get rid of it from this side, I'm going to add 6u. And I'm going to add 6u to this side, keeping it equivalent. So here, this cancels out. I'm left with a negative 20 on this side. This is now 13u, and I bring this down. Now, again, I want to get rid of the number that's on this side, the 19. So I'm going to subtract 19 from this side and subtract 19 from this side. So again, on this side, they cancel out, and I get a 13u here. Add this up, and I get a negative 39. Now, to get rid of the 13, that's with the u. This is the numerical coefficient. We often divide by the numerical coefficient of the variable. And since this is a positive, we're dividing by a positive. So we now get a 1 here. Anything divided by itself is 1. And we get a u then, a 1u. We don't write the 1. But doing this division, we're going to end up with a negative. 13 goes into 39 3 times. So our answer for this one, following this protocol, and again, we're featuring this so you can see what we're looking for on your blue sheet. You write the example down. You show the steps. So looking at this, I can give partial credit. All right, let's call this one number 2 here. The cost of a fishing rod and reel. Well, the rod cost $5 less than twice the reel. So what don't we know anything about? Well, we don't know anything about the cost of the reel. So we're going to say let x equal the cost of the reel. So they want us to convert this from English into algebra. Well, we have a rod and a reel. Now we know the reel costs x. And they don't want us to simplify here, just to translate. Now, what would the rod cost? Well, we're going to add it to the price of the reel. We know it's twice the reel, less $5. Now, if you wanted to put parentheses around this to indicate this is the rod here, you don't have to write that in your answer, of course. and this is the real. And that would be our second example for today. Now, I want to see this in your notebook. Now, this next one, we'll call this one number 3, is very typical, and it's always on a test, and numbers might change, but it's very similar. So take a moment, you're going to sketch this. This is a rectangle. We're saying the length is 5, and the width we don't know. And the perimeter, that is the sum of all the sides, is 38. Now, one of the things they ask you to do is to select from a series of formulas that I don't have here, but you'll have this in your practice and certify, and of course on your test. What is the formula for a perimeter? Well, it's perimeter equals 2 lengths plus 2 widths. Now, what don't we know? And we don't know the W here. So the first thing they ask us is to solve this equation for W. Now, we're going to use the transposition technique, where there's our P. We want to isolate the W term on this side. So we're going to move the 2L to the other side just by transposing it, which is taking it from this side, change the sign. On this side it was a plus, on the other side it's going to be a negative. And we now have the second step. Now, how do we get the W by itself? Well, we're going to divide by 2. And the 2's cancel out. So to save room now, I'm going to just erase the 2 here. And that's what W is. Now, this is worth a whole answer on your test. And 99% of the test has this question on it. So this is the protocol for solving, first selecting the correct formula, and then solving for the unknown letter. Now we substitute the information we know. Well, we know P is 38. This is the P minus 2 lengths. So this is going to be minus 2 times 5. The length is 5, 2 lengths, and then we're going to divide by 2. Well, negative 2 times 5 is negative 10, and this is 38. So 38 minus 10 is 28, divided by 2 will equal our width. So our width is going to be 14. And notice what we've done here. We used a sketch, and it wasn't proportional, but it helped us to see a little bit what we needed. There's our answer. All right, we're going to call this one number 4. And after 10 years, the person has $600 interest. What was the principal originally that he invested, or she invested? So we're looking here now for the... Oh, you might recall today it's snowing, so my wife is asking me about taking the snow off here. All right, let's get back to business. So the formula for interest, again, this was perimeter. Interest is I equals PRT. So we need to do some substitution. What is our interest? Well, we know that. The interest is 600. What is our principal? We don't know that. That's going to be P. What is our rate? Well, I forgot to put the rate down. It's 8%. So converting 8% to its decimal form is 0.08 that I'll put in parentheses. And what's the time? 10 years. Okay, so what I'm going to do is multiply the 10 times this, and I get P, and then this becomes 0.8. I just move the decimal over 1 by multiplying by 10. And this equals 600. So again, you had to recognize the interest formula, had to know how to substitute into the formula, and now we want to solve for P. Well, we're going to divide both sides by 0.8. 0.8. And using your calculator, you get $750. Now, again, if you have any questions on these, ask. We have one more. I know this is running a little long, but some very good stuff and well worth our effort. Now, this last one deals with the area of a trapezoid. And the figure I've drawn here, this is a trapezoid, not very good, but to give you some background. First, what is the formula for the area of a trapezoid? Well, it's A equals 1/2 the height, and then it's the sum of the two sides. We'll call this parallel side B, and this parallel side down here C. Now, they might ask us, how do you solve for the letter C, which is what we don't know? Well, I'll do this one for you and follow along. One of the first things we do is get rid of fractions. So we're going to multiply this term by the lowest common denominator, which is a 2. And this is all one term. Multiply this by a 2. And then here the 2's cancel out. So I'm going to erase it, so it saves us some room here. Now the next thing we have to do is get rid of our parentheses. So this side stays 2a, and then this is HB, and then we multiply that and we get HC. Now, how do we get rid of this term? Because we want to solve for that letter C there. We just transpose it, bring it to the other side, change its sign. And how do we get rid of the C now? Again, this is very similar to the one we did with a parameter. Well, we divide both sides by H. And I'll erase that now. And there we've solved this formula for the letter C, which is one of the techniques you're going to need to be familiar with. Now we just do some substitution. Well, our area is 240, so twice 240 is 480. Now we know H is 20, and we know our short side here is 7, And that's all going to be over h, which is 20. And that equals c. So 20 times 7, this is going to be 140. So we'll use the power of an eraser. And 480 minus 140 is going to be 340. Just want you to see how this is working out here. And 20, keep in mind we can do this. Our 2 goes into 34 now, 17 times. So our side C then is 17. And if you put all of this back into the original formula, you'll see it ends up being 240. Okay, so just over 15 minutes.